Welcome back to Where Are They Now podcast. My next guest, I'm really excited that she's joined the podcast, and I'm glad she's here. She is from Big Break, Florida, which aired February 24th, 2014. So not too long ago, although, God, it's almost 2021. The contest was filmed in Amelia Island, I believe, in Jacksonville or Northern Florida, at the Omni. So with this win, the exemption was into the 2014, what was it, Manulife Financial LPGA Classic. And then there were some exemptions, I remember, with the Symetra Tour too. I think all your dues were paid or something like that into all of 2015, which is really, really cool. She has a tremendous course demeanor. I say this a lot with some of these big break folks, but really just keeps it together, tee to green. A cerebral approach, meaning she's strategizing out there. She's not just hitting the ball. What's my yardage? Let me rip and, let it rip. It's, if I'm playing in a match play, what's my opponent's condition? Where are they? It's really a cerebral game that I'm also jealous of. And she's longer than I thought, by the way, folks. She can bomb the ball. She ran out and won the driving contest, and it was like the big hitters out there. And she was like, oh, geez, maybe I shouldn't have picked this. And then she goes out and, in the same ballpark as they were. So that was kind of cool to see. And also definitely a fan favorite. We could tell that through our surveys. I am really excited to have the winner of Big Break Florida, Jackie Stoelting. Welcome to Where Are They Now podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We're excited about it. We're going to jump right in to the fan questions. There's a bunch of them, and we narrowed them down. And what we usually do is take about 5 or 6 at the beginning, and then we'll work them in through the process of how did you find out about Big Break and what was tryouts like. There's a ton of questions. Then we'll talk about the competition, not every challenge, but we'll go through some of it. And then we really want to know what's going on today, and we'll work some of those questions in there. So first question from Ashley from St. Petersburg, Florida. She asked, did the production aspect of Big Break affect your game, all those cameras and setup times, et cetera?
Gosh, yeah, it was definitely different than tournament golf. Our days started, we had to be ready, mic'd up, ready to go at 6 a.m. And then sometimes our nights wouldn't end till 11 o'clock midnight, just depending on when your interview time was. So it was definitely different for me. I kept saying in a lot of my interviews, this isn't normal golf. They didn't like that. They wouldn't air that. But the challenges were just so different than playing golf. And, having the camera crew there, I think there was like around 80 people on the crew. And, when you're hitting a shot, you're the only person hitting and all eyes are on you, all the cameras on you. And literally that one shot could be the difference of winning money or sending you home or sending you to elimination. And I've never been more nervous in my entire life than airing or being in that show. And to be honest, the most comfortable I ever felt was the finale, because I actually knew I got to play, theoretically 18 holes of golf. It was match play, so it ended up not being 18 holes, but I knew in my mind, I was like, this is actual golf. I can play golf and enjoy myself and relax a little.
Some of the best, the funniest moments on the show are you and Mary sitting on that bench. And I'm sure they filmed you the whole time and then cut it up. But when she says to you, relax, she's like, relax, Jackie, you're good. I'm going to knock you off this bench. It's so Mary, and you just, you have your head down, you're nervous, it's golf. You don't know what can happen. And by the way, is it Fiamma and Renee?
Yes.
Are going in the other match? These are two. Renee's someone that you're like, oh, she's out in week 2. And then here she comes and you say it in the middle of the show. They're underestimating her. You mentioned it right in the middle. And here she comes. Her short game is on fire. And then Fiamma is just consistent. And she's got game. You can tell by her swing and how she performed. And you have every right to be nervous because, you're not a lock at that point. It was just funny. Kind of Mary knows she's out of it and she's got all loose and you're sitting there nervous wreck. That was one other thing I want to follow up to that question. You mentioned 80 people and cameras. I was a big break fan when it started. I watched all the shows Tuesday nights. I thought it was cool. We had some buddies. Sometimes we go play Golden Tee at a bar and have a beer and watch up at the thing and check it out. It was just really cool to watch. And now doing this, I've watched a lot of Big Break, a lot of Big Break. I didn't know the production was such a production, right? And to talk about, I think it was Toph Peterson was saying, there's a truck literally with a boom camera, like on the course, and there's, people running in this side, and there's all this action. And two things. One is definitely you answered the question of distraction, but how do they keep that stuff off the camera? Like we never see it. That is some real
Right.
filming. I mean, you occasionally will see a guy diving at the screen, because somebody with a handheld catches somebody, but it's unbelievable the amount of people that are, doing that show. It's amazing.
Yeah, they watching the reruns that they've been doing, I've kind of noticed how, I kind of wanted to watch and be like, all right, well, now that I know my side of it and seeing the behind the scenes, what it was like, when they filmed, 10 years before I did or whenever they did it. I can see how they progressed in different areas. I remember I watched a couple of the first few seasons that they filmed, or I guess showed. And I could see how like the cameras were, or their mic packs were being exposed, where we had to wear it under our shirt with this. So you never even could tell that we were wearing mics.
Right.
And then a lot of times the hosts were right there with the contestants, where on our show we had Melanie Collins and Tom Abbott, and they were never with us. And we never really communicated with them. Occasionally Tom would show up at our dinner, but it was never on the golf course. We hardly ever were close to them. So we couldn't even really hear what they were saying.
Interesting.
But they would tell us where to stand. So that there weren't cameras behind us. But a lot of times, like if you were on the putting green, there was probably 4 or 5 cameras set up around the putting green. And then you had the camera guy, the sound guy, a light guy. And so there was like these little pods of 3 people, and they would tell you where to stand so that you weren't if you weren't hitting. Yeah. Obviously, if you're hitting, then that's different. But if you weren't hitting, they told you where to stand so that they could have a camera on you, but you weren't being exposed to any of the other cameras.
That's unbelievable.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Mark from Baltimore asks, Jackie, was it tougher mentally or physically for you?
Ooh, I would definitely say mentally. The hardest thing for me was it was the unknown. With golf, my tournaments, I know what I have to do. I know the golf course. I know that I'm going to play 18 holes. I have the next day. For me, it was, you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you're like, what's the challenge going to be today? I felt like I had such a pit in my stomach every single morning. And then as soon as I was safe, I felt comfortable and I was fine. I'd go to sleep, and the next morning the emotions of that stomach ache would start all over again. I think, honest to God, I lost about 5 pounds filming the show just because of the nervous anxiousness. I felt like I couldn't even hold any food down. Not that I was getting sick, but it was just more that, when you're nervous, you can't feel like you can't even eat. It really was crazy what I felt like it did to me. And like I said, the most comfortable I felt was the night before the finale, when I knew I got to actually play golf. Just more the unknown, like I said, that you don't know what kind of shot you're going to have to hit. And there were episodes you only hit 1 or 2 shots, and that's it.
Yeah, I want to explore that a little bit, because in our conversation, and I mentioned Double D a lot on these podcasts, but he was someone that said, Nick, I looked, and I'm talking about Don Donatello. He mentioned this as, I wanted this so bad. I mean, aside from family and friends and my God and that, this was the most important thing in my life. And basically, without saying it, Jackie, he said there was different levels. Everybody wanted to win, but there was different levels of commitment to try to win. You're getting nauseated and not sleeping because you want this bad. Is that fair?
Right. Absolutely, for sure. I mean, I knew it was a amazing opportunity, obviously to win stuff, but also as an exposure, that I potentially could get sponsors out of it, or opportunities of playing in a pro-am because I was on the show. And then also getting to play in LPGA events. There was so much on the line, and it was the biggest prize I've ever played for up to that point that, I kind of forgot about what we were playing for until the last show, when before Fiamma and I played, they listed off everything that we were playing for. I'm like, really? You got to do that to me right before I play? So, and then even after I couldn't even remember everything I won until I got the contract, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's really it was extremely life-changing for me. that I like still to this day, that if I didn't have that experience and win, then my life, I probably wouldn't still be playing golf, to be honest.
Well, we're going to explore what it did to you and everybody. A lot of the questions for you, and not taking away from your performance at all, but it was all, and we're going to get to all these questions, folks. I promise I'll get there. Was how did she find out about it? How did she, do it? Where were tryouts? All that stuff. And then the majority of the questions were, obviously some people know what you're doing today, but they want to know right after, what was the life change and how did it affect you? You win the thing, you go home, you're sworn to secrecy. And this is going to transition right into my next question from Todd from San Diego. You can't say anything. You just won Big Break, Florida, and you can't say anything for, I'm guessing it's got to be 6 weeks, 2 months, something in the neighborhood, maybe.
Yeah.
Because they got to do all their post-production and that stuff and get it all together and then get it on the air. And then, so what happens in that quiet time, if you will? And then when it goes instant celebrity or everybody, you're having viewing parties, this is all what we're going to find out in coming here. But the transition from Todd is, now that I forgot, we're going to have to cut that out. Todd's question is, was anyone on the show, did you get close to anyone on the show, and are you still connected to them today?
Yeah, there were several girls I got close to. I ended up probably the closest to Renee, and I kind of knew her through Symetra Tour before the show started. So that's where more I kept saying, like, people are underestimating her just because she struggled on the first episode. Like, I know she's way better than that. So, and she was more a girl that I felt like I was drawn to as far as her personality, and she's a little more quiet and let her golf game speak for herself and didn't get caught in the drama. And that was my number one goal, was like, do not get caught in the drama. And I actually I journaled through the whole show, and I went and brought it out last night to read through kind of what I wrote. And that was the biggest thing, is that just, I wrote, I'm trying not to get caught in the drama, but Mary's frustrating me, and I'm trying to be, politically correct in what I say, and hopefully I come off like that. But at some point I couldn't, I had to say something to an extent. But back to the question, Renee is definitely one that I got close to, and I still talk to her a little bit. And then there's some other girls, Kylie, Lindsay, Tanya. I keep up with them mostly through social media. Occasionally, Kylie lives out in Arizona, so I saw her a couple times when I played out there. Lindsay lives out in Portland area, so I saw her when I played tournaments out there. I saw Sedina on LPGA when we both were out there, but to be honest, I'm not even sure what she's doing now, if she's still playing or. So mostly through social media. Christy O'Brien, she's got 2 little kids, and I just had a baby 9 months ago. So she and I have talked a little bit about baby stuff and whatnot. So there's a few of them. I would say probably half that I still talk to. That's
pretty cool. Brian from Dallas, Texas. What did you guys do at night?
Well, there wasn't much much to do, I suppose.
As we've learned, yeah.
So we came back after the golf day. I'm trying to remember around what time that was. Maybe between 3 and 4, we would get back to our hotel. On our season, we each had our own hotel room, which was awesome. But then we had basically the presidential suite, where we had our dinner, and then where our hair and makeup would be. So we would come back, and we would have I guess you would call it a curtain call. So you would have to be there for an hour for hair and makeup, and then right after that was an hour to 2 hour interview, depending on your day. So if you got off, if you were the one eliminated that day, then your interview is most likely going to be longer. So they rotated those. So the first night each producer had, I believe, 3 girls. So the first night I might've been the first girl interviewed. So my interview might've been at, 6 o'clock. And then there's other times that I would be the last girl interviewed at 9 o'clock. So now I'm not getting back to my room till 10:30. After a long day, sometimes it's hard to just, settle down. But we didn't, if you were still on the show, you did not get to do any sort of excursions unless you won it. But I wasn't going to the pool. I was basically staying on our floor and going back and forth to do the hair, makeup, interviews, dinner, that kind of thing.
Perfect segue into Mike from Framingham, Massachusetts. Question: What happened to the eliminated players? I know in early seasons they were sent home, and in later seasons they stayed at the resort. What did they do all day? Were they able to play golf? Were they able to go to the pool, etc.?
I mean, I can't fully tell you that answer because I was never eliminated, thankfully. So from
That's
what I
right.
heard, I think about every other day they had an excursion for them. I know one day they got to go on a boat, another day they got to do horseback riding. And then on our season, we had 3 golf courses that we used. 2 mostly, we just used one on one day. And so I think that they played the other course often, but we never saw them. They still stayed in their rooms and on the same floor, but it was to the point of when we were getting back, they were gone or they weren't allowed out of their rooms. I'm not exactly sure.
You intentionally did not see them. Like there was set up.
We were not allowed really to see them until the last show.
Right. They all came on.
They came on and watched the finale. And then that night we had like I think somewhat of a like end of the wrap party, I guess, and dinner. I remember going to a dinner. But we really did not interact with them at all. The only reason why I know that they did stuff is because I think when they were airing the show, they did little extra video clips on Golf Channel that would show what they did. While we were playing golf, the eliminated contestants got to do this, that, and just, I think, to show off the resort that we stayed at.
Got it. Awesome. Quick programming note. If you want your questions answered by your favorite Big Break star, send them in and we'll get them on quick hitters. You can hit us up at wherearetheyNowpodcast@gmail.com or Where Are They Now Podcast at Twitter and Instagram and all the other places, and our website, wherearetheyNowpodcast.com. Upcoming episode, we have Cindy Miller from Ladies Only. We have Pam Garrity from Ladies Only, the runner-up in that show. We have Mark Murphy, the winner of Ireland. We have Mark Silvers, the winner of Greenbrier. I mean, a lot of stuff. I mean, am I bringing it for you guys or what? All these winners, Jackie today. It's unbelievable. So let's talk about the process. Let's talk about were you a Big Break fan? Did you watch it on Golf Channel? I know you're playing. So tell us about how it all started in the tryout and all that stuff.
So at the time I was playing on the Symetra Tour, and it may have been Futures Tour back then. I'm not exactly sure. Can't remember exactly, but probably once I got out there, I started watching a little bit of the show, and then I started having friends that were on the show. Sarah Brown, Mallory Blackwelder, Stephanie Canoyer were a few of them. And I remember they had come out to a couple Symetra Tour events, the Big Break producers, I think they were, maybe director. I'm not exactly sure who came, but they would do interviews right on the range for us. So basically they would film your swing and then do an interview as if you were on the show. So they would ask you, basically they wanted to know your story, your background story, whatnot. So I remember, I think I interviewed a couple times, and then I was an alternate for a show. And so basically they told me if anyone backs out last minute, get sick, whatnot, you're on. Well, I wasn't on. So I suppose it's a blessing in disguise. So I knew I was kind of on their radar is what I had heard, that, if you're an alternate, that most likely you would be on a, season in the future. But, I wasn't holding my hopes up. I was just kind of, whatever happens, happens. So it was 2013. I had just gotten married in May. And then right after I had qualified for my first US Open. And I qualified like 10 days after my wedding. So then go to the Open. My husband caddied for me, ended up making the cut. And at the time when I had signed up for the US Open qualifier, my last name, I wasn't married. So my last name was Barenborg. And then I qualified and my new last name was Stoelting. Well, I called USGA to say, hey, can you switch my last name? And they said, oh, we can't. All we can do is hyphenate. So I was Jacqueline Barenborg Stoelting. So it was quite amusing because in USGA events, every time you go to each hole, they have a scoreboard and they put up last names. So it was really funny to see different versions of my name up on the scoreboard. It ended up being great because it was my first US Open. So my parents still got to have, my maiden name on
That's
there,
cool. Yeah,
but then
cool.
also my married name. So it was a pretty cool experience. So I go play that, make the cut, and then fly to Albany, New York. and they had interviews there for a big break. So I just had gotten done with, the past month of a crazy life, and I interviewed there. And then I don't remember when I got the call. It was later that summer I got the call that I was going to be on the show. So they came out and did a hometown where they do the hometown video. So I spent a whole day doing kind of things around my town. I had a job at the time, part-time job, to be able to pay for golf. So my parents knew and my husband knew that I was going to be on the show. And then we didn't film until we filmed in October. I remember I won on Halloween, was the finale. And then I don't think it aired until February. And then they didn't show the finale until May. So from October to May was a complete secret. People swore up and down my parents knew, but they didn't even want to know. And I didn't want to tell them, because if I shared that information, I could have potentially lost everything that I won. And clearly it was not worth it for me. So that was hard, but at the same time, it was a long separation between October and February when it started airing, that I was able to finally keep a straight face when people asked me. I was like, you're just gonna have to watch and see what happens. So there was a couple times my mom was dead convinced that I got kicked off the show. And she was just a ball of emotions every single week, of worried that I was gonna get kicked off. And it was kind of fun to be able to see that.
So did you find out you're going to Big Break? I'm sure it's not too long that you go, right? They tell you maybe 2 or 3 weeks later you're going, or something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty close to when I was leaving. And then I didn't even know where I was going. I think 2 days before, all they told me was what kind of weather to pack for. And then 2 days before I left, they gave me my flight itinerary, but all it was, I thought I was going to be leaving the country. And meanwhile, I didn't even leave my state, because I live about 3.5 hours south of where we filmed. But it took me like an 8-hour trip to get there flying. I flew West Palm to Atlanta to Jacksonville, and that's all I knew. And then they picked me up in Jacksonville. They say, hand me your phone. And then from there, they drove me to the Omni. So none of my family knew where I was, other than they knew that I was flying to Jacksonville. That was it.
Amazing. And before we move on, I want to so now you're going, and Big Break, the show, you're playing golf, but you're playing tee to green golf. Is there any you're not shooting balls over your house, are you, or for the flop?
No. Yeah. There's no way to prepare for that show, really. Because really, even bringing the glass is just hitting punch shots, flopping over the wall, you're just hitting flop shots. So I had no idea really what I was getting myself into. And I really didn't have any expectations either. I obviously went there to win, but I had no clue who was going to be there, if it was going to be girls, if it was going to be guys, if it was going to be teams, individuals. I just knew I took it as an opportunity to, enhance my golf game, an opportunity to get my name out there, and an opportunity to win prizes.
You mentioned teams. I was watching for upcoming interviews I have to do. I was watching one of the team events. It was the Trump National. And I'm not so sure. I love Big Break. There's nobody that loves Big Break more than me. I love the show. I love watching it. I think it's exciting. I think it's really cool. I love the cerebral aspect of it all, and the stress and the pressure that's put on, how people deal with that, as much as I love the golf aspect as well, but just handling that mental and physical strain. But I don't know if there's any criticism. The team thing, man, sometimes it just gets you. It's like, I don't know, I can name 5. I won't now, but there's different circumstances where the team impact, you might not have anything to do with it, but you're just riding along. And that's really a tough way. I see how you are and the show, and excited and emotional, keeping it together because you want it so bad. Man, if I had to rely on somebody else, I don't know. I was watching I mentioned the Trump, it's the senior guys and it's these younger women, and it's just the balance of that. It's just makes it exciting though. So anyway,
I was happy that I was on an individual, just because then I had the fate in my own hands, that I didn't have to rely on anyone. There was a couple episodes that we were put into teams. Sometimes it was frustrating because I wasn't able to hit that shot that I wanted to be able to hit.
Right.
But it was someone else hitting the shot that sealed the fate of whether we won immunity or not. But then at the end of the day, it was an individual game by the end. So it was, I still had my fate in my own hands where I wasn't relying on team members.
So I have Diane from Dallas, Texas asked this question. We all know Big Break is pressure packed. Which of these affected you the most? The talent, which puts some pressure on you the most, I should say. The talent, the cameras, the downtime.
I would say, downtime, you mean like in between shots on the...
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that was definitely difficult to deal with. The cameras definitely were difficult because it was just, you knew literally there was not a second that you could watch what you were doing or saying because you knew that they could capture everything. Even if you were whispering something, they were going to capture that. So you really had to sit there and think about, I kept saying to myself, like, I had 2 younger nieces at the time. Now they're a little more grown up, but I just said, what if they're going to watch this show, would they be proud of me? And what I say and do, I want them to watch it and say, that's my Aunt Jackie, and not be embarrassed by me or say, I can't believe you said that or you did that. Yeah. So that was definitely something that always kept me on my toes. But at the same time, the downtime was pretty difficult too. There were times we always got to go to the range before the challenge, and they would give us a little glimpse. Like, I remember the first episode, they said, work on your punch shots. Well, so we knew it was break the glass. But if you were the 10th person to go, you could have sat there for an hour without hitting a single shot, and the anticipation of waiting, I think definitely was difficult. But then there were times too where you could have been the first person to hit, but it really put you at an unfair, I guess at a disadvantage, because if you were the last person to hit, you may have known, okay, well, all I have to do is this to get immunity or to get points. It was they had a lawyer, we had to sign before every single challenge that we knew what the challenge was. And then pretty much the entire time it was a random draw on who got to go. So it was really fair. It wasn't like anyone was put at a disadvantage because of how they performed or acted or anything like that. But it was, I would say the downtime was definitely made you think a lot more.
Sure. It was interesting. As I did my research for this Big Break series, that's exactly what it was, as a game show, right? So those legal documents had to be signed because we're giving away money, and nobody can contest this stuff. We don't want somebody to say, hey, Jackie got to hit 3 balls at the flop. Well, I only hit 2, right? So everybody's going to sign away. These are the rules. One thing I want to mention about whispering is I'm the best sand player in the world. I think that's what you said in the sand.
Oh, yeah.
You just
So at that point in my golf career, that was the absolute worst statistic of mine, is I was a horrible sand player. So for me,
that's not what you wanted in your head.
No, I was really trying to kind of push that negative thought away. And if I could say it out loud, that maybe I would, have more belief and say, okay, you're the best sand player in the world. You're the best sand player in the world. Like trying to will it. And I ended up hitting a great bunker shot and making the cut. So it ended up working out.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. You hit a great shot after that.
Yeah, I think Big Break, it definitely taught me, if it's really having the confidence in every single shot when you're up to that shot, because Big Break, it was literally one shot at a time. That's what I kept saying. And I remember all my interviews after the show aired, is it really taught me the importance of one shot at a time, and how, on golf, sometimes you let a shot go here and there, but then that could, just compound on each other and you make a big number, or, you get out of play. Where Big Break, you did not have that opportunity. You could hit one bad shot and that could have derailed you and also sent your mind into negative spaces. So yeah, the sand shot for me was me trying to motivate myself to say, okay, you're a good bunker player. Come on, hit a good shot.
That's cool. That was really cool. So let's talk about the highs and lows of the competition. Before we jump into the glass break, I want to do a little word association with some of your competitors. Tell us about Mary.
I knew you were going to go right here. So I actually knew Mary before the show. So I knew her from Symetra Tour, and I always thought like, oh, she's just this really funny person. Like, she just is a comedic, she's just really funny. And then when we got there, we had about 3 days of practice, photo shoots, video shoots, interviews, all sorts of stuff, before we actually started airing the first episode. So, I obviously hung out with her a little bit more those 3 days, got to know her a little bit more. And then once the competition started, a different kind of Mary came out. And then I realized that, sometimes her being funny was a little bit rude. And I remember at one point, she was doing something, and I had pulled her to the side off camera. This is back at the hotel. And I was like, hey, this is early on. It was like maybe the 3rd or 4th episode. And I was like, hey, look, when I just am wanting to look out as a friend to you. When I came onto the show, I, thought about how my nieces, once again, would watch me and would they be proud of me? So I'm really trying to watch what I say and watch what I do. Not that I think that I'm gonna, start saying F-bombs or anything, but I just knew you just are more self-conscious about, okay, this is gonna be on national TV. How do I want to look? But also being my true, authentic self. And so she had done something, I'm sure, that I was like, oh my gosh, Mary, like, are you even remembering that we're on TV right now? So I remember telling her, I'm like, hey, I just am looking out for you. You might want to be careful. And I remember her saying something like, I don't give an F, except for she said the word, what anyone thinks of me. And it was like, ding, 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 disassociate yourself with her. I was like, I am not going to be a part of that. And I didn't like how she was, kind of being, I probably said it on the show, but kind of like being a bully. There was a couple times that I'm like, she was running the show for other girls, like specifically Fiamma. I remember one time Fiamma had to pick somebody, and Mary was up for picking. Mm-hmm. And Mary was telling Fiamma who to pick. And I'm like, hold on a second. You can pick Mary. I wouldn't want any, Renee and I are good friends, but I'm not going to go tell Renee who to pick. And Renee's not going to go tell me who to pick. And so for me, after a few episodes, I kind of saw how Mary was, and I was like, I don't want to be associated with that. And I know Kylie at one point, she had said, there's this group over here that gets along, this group over here that gets along. And we don't really see eye to eye type thing. And it kind of like, split the group. And I was not on the group with Mary.
So let me give you some anecdotal evidence of support. One is their beeps of Mary early on in the show were unbelievable, right? So it seemed, though, to be honest with you, and maybe this was, she did care more than she said to you, because there was less beeps as you went into season 4, 5, 6, 7, and on, or series or episodes, I should say. Couple things. One is the Fiamma thing. It borderlined on like big break stepping in kind of thing, because when you play in the team events and there's team, let's say, and I'm just mentioning the Trump last night, the girls are sitting on the bench on the side. They see the ball is in the muck. They can't yell out to their teammate on the field, hey, this guy's in much more trouble than you think, because that's the game show. It's interesting. Either Mary in the Fiamma situation is a genius, and it's Fiamma's fault. I mean, you could look at it that way too, right? That I'm going to distract the what out of her. So these are your only options. And here, let me give you the pros and cons. And in the meantime, wow, Mary's really nice to help me out with this big decision, although she could be one of them. So I would offer that. The other thing is, I forgot who it was. It might have been Lauren that walks past her, because you guys, it was like the sitting on the bench of where they're going to in or out, and she walks past her and she says, hey, I hope you're not mad, or no, I'm not mad at you.
I'm not mad. Yeah.
And she said, I don't give a, and I was like, whoa, this is a different tune here.
I think watching back and kind of hearing, because I think it was the second episode, whenever Lindsay and Courtney had to pick somebody, and Courtney was like deathly afraid of going against Mary, just because Mary was just an aggressive personality. And maybe it was like her way of saying, like, scaring people of don't pick me. And at one point I'm like, she's all talk, and she needs to put, her game and show her game to just, speak for itself. Cause I knew she was a good player. I mean, she played on Symmetra Tour. But when Courtney and Lindsay picked her, And then Mary was like, you guys are so dumb. You know, it was just this scare tactic. Yeah. And then I remember she won and she came back and was like, does anyone want to pick me now? You know, and I was just like, that's when my wheels started turning. I'm like, hold on a second. Like, that's not how I want to play. I want to, you know, if you want to pick me, go ahead. Well, let's go and play golf man to man, but I'm not going to scare you into not picking me type thing. And then it was almost like a controlling thing that, I mean, ended up that Fiamma didn't pick Mary, but then the next day, I think Mary didn't pick Fiamma and she picked Sedina, and we were shocked. But then that's where we thought, well, maybe it's a friend thing. But for me, at the end of the day, like, I was there to win, you know, and I, as much as I'm friends with some of these girls, at the end of the day, there's only going to be one winner. So, you know, but it ended up working out for Mary picking Sedina. And I knew if I was in that situation, she was hands down going to pick me to try and take me out.
I'll be honest with you. Well, let me just finish on Mary first. She brought somebody to tears. I don't remember who it was, but on the show, the pressure of that intimidation, I wish I knew who it was. They were just saying, you know, I'm just want to play golf. And this kind of pressure of, you know, who's going to pick and who, I just can't. And they literally were tearing up because of Mary. I forgot who it was, but anyway, I would have never picked Sedina. She scared the daylights out of me from day one. You said early in the show that I think, you know, well, no, it wasn't early in the show. It was when Sedina left. You said, I thought it would be her and I, like in the finals. That's what and I love the fact that you compliment her, but also say, hey, I'm going to be there. Cause you're like, you know what I mean? You're saying that you are going to be in the finals, which shows your confidence, right? You think. Right.
Oh yeah. I mean, Sedina, she was a great example of, she let her golf game speak for itself. You know, she didn't sit there and scare anybody, and you know, she hit it a long way, and she was just rock solid for the whole show. And like I said, I honestly, once she was gone, I was like, oh my gosh, I really could win this thing. Like, in my head, I'm like, the girls that are left, like, I think I can beat them. And that was, you know, and that's the premises of the show, is knock everyone out one at a time. You know, I told you it's kind of like Survivor.
Sedina was, and this is the second of the three people I'd like to pick your brain about. She looked like the best player on the show by far in the early episodes. Mm-hmm. That's not to take anything away from you. You obviously had game, but she was pin hunting, she was putting, she hit a drive that was, you and Mary go, no, you say to Mary, what are we doing here? Like what? I mean, she hit a bomb. It was, you know, it was like way down. Anyway, and I want to get your opinion about what happened to her, because there was spots where she's on a par 3 and she just pulls it 40 yards left, and it's like, what? And she does it again, and then like 2 minutes later, she's pin hunting again. It's like all over the place. I will say one thing that really impressed me about her was she's standing and leaning on her club, and she's in the zone, and Mary goes over to her and says, hey, I hope you're not mad at me, or something like that. And she doesn't even respond. Mm-hmm. Just shakes her head. Like, one, get the message that I'm not mad at you. I don't care. It's not even being about mad. It's not even in my thought. And she said, I'm playing a golf tournament here. I'm trying to win this thing. Right. This isn't about friend bonding and stuff like that. And it's, again, says something about winners. You're getting sick and not sick, but you know what I mean? You're crazy and you can't sleep, and this thing is all consuming. She's in a zone, just like you're in a zone. Says something about winners here. Like, really laser focused in on what the mission and the goal is. I don't have time for the ancillary. You said I'm going to stay away from the drama. Yes, you want to make your nieces be comfortable, and you're not throwing F-bombs, and you're doing the right thing, and you're acting professional. But man, you two guys it was like, these are the people that are zoned in on what the goal is. And it's to be at the end, you know, standing on the tee box. Right?
Yep. I had played with Sedina a couple times on Symetra before the show. So, you know, when you play 18 holes with someone, you see all sorts of their game. And she's a great player. However, her course management, I felt like, lacked, because we played a course that was a little bit tighter, and she just hit driver everywhere. So, you know, all of a sudden she'd be 3 under and then make a triple. So I knew that she had weak parts of her game, just like I have weak parts of my game. Bunker play, for instance.
You're the best bunker player in the world.
So I knew that there were that in my head when I saw who was on the show. On paper, I had the best resume. I had several good finishes on Symetra Tour, second place finishes. At that time, Sedina she hadn't played very well in Symetra. She had made a couple cuts and stuff, but she wasn't winning tournaments or contending at all that I remember. But what were we talking about with her? I lost my train of thought now.
Just inconsistency of her course management.
Oh, yeah. So that was another thing. So she would joke around, and it was true that she would have like 2 shanks a day. So she said typically I would get them out on the range. So literally, like, we would be warming up, and all of a sudden there'd be a shank. And it was Sedina. And the day that she got kicked off, I think she had made a comment like she had only had 1 shank on the practice range, and so she knew that second one was coming somewhere, and she ended up shanking it when she played Mary. And I think Mary picking Sedina was trying to catch her off guard. I think she already knew that day when she had said, are you mad at me? That I think it was when we played some sort of like horse game in that first challenge. Yep. And I think Mary could kind of see Sedina was frustrated that day. And I think that's where Mary sometimes could play those mind games of, well, I already know that she's like not in a good headspace, so I could throw her off guard and pick her. And the next day when Mary had said, she said, I was just tired of you and her getting a free ride to the end. And that made me so mad because I was like, look, I'm not getting a free ride. Like, I've earned immunity. I'm sorry that I haven't been able to be chosen. I was up for elimination, like the first 4 episodes. Someone could have picked me, but no one had picked me at that point. But then from then on, I had won immunity every single show, and so she was mad that I was getting a free ride. But in my eyes, it wasn't free. I had earned it. Free to me would have been I'm up for elimination every single week and no one picks me. And so that's what she made the comment about Sedina, that she was just tired of that. And I think she just caught Sedina, Sedina was frustrated. And I mean, I was still shocked that Mary took her out. But Sedina does every now and then have a missed shot here and there, and ended up, I think that show was the best thing for her golf game, because the next year she ended up playing really well on Symetra, winning a couple events and getting her LPGA card. And so I think for sure that show, I think most impacted her career at that time, as well as mine too. Shortly after that, we actually both ended up finishing in the top 10 that next year on Symetra. So it catapulted both of our careers, but I definitely think that show really helped her golf game and her confidence.
Really quick, what was she like off the course? Nice person?
Oh, she was great.
Oh, yeah.
She was hilarious. She was cracking jokes. She was a great friend. She had a great personality. She really stayed out of the drama. I don't really remember, other than that last show with Mary, with Sedina. I think Sedina really kept it pretty level the whole time. And no, she was a lot of fun to hang out with when we were mic'd up.
Cool. One other thing that popped up from one of your contestants was a little bit of an emotional breakdown. And I'm talking about Lauren Sullivan, I believe. She gets in the cart and the pressure just hit her, and all of a sudden she's laying down and crying, and she's really upset, and she's like really upset with her game. And for the most part, I don't think anybody ran over to her. I don't know where the logistics were of people, but you made a comment that said, I don't know if that's what I would want to show, because you're showing weakness, and this is not the place to show weakness, because somebody may pick you. And sure enough, later in that episode, she is picked for the elimination. How did you get a sense of that? Or you just knew that in golf, that's not what you want to show your career?
Yeah, a little bit of both. To be honest, that day I had a few tough challenges. That was the day that I picked the long drive, and I chose based on other people, and I was like, what are you doing? You shouldn't have chosen that. And then that next challenge, I didn't perform very well in, and I was very frustrated myself, but I was keeping it inside because I believe Dallas was the one that was choosing at that time, and she was a wild card. None of us really knew her, so we didn't know who she would pick. And I know I was up for grabs, Lauren, and I think there was a few others that were up for grabs to be chosen. And as soon as Lauren started getting emotional, I'm pretty sure several girls went to Dallas, and I'm pretty sure Mary might have been one of them, and was like, you need to pick Lauren. Like, she's crying and you can beat her because she's upset. And I was like, I'm staying out of this because I'm up for a challenge, or up for being picked. But I was like, what are you doing, Lauren? Like, I really liked Lauren. I ended up getting to know her a little bit after. And I just knew, I'm like, if you're going to show that you're upset, that's an easy weakness for someone to pick up and say, well, they're already upset, they're frustrated, just kind of like how Sadina was with Mary. Like, you got to jump on those opportunities of, well, who can I beat? Maybe I can beat the person that is showing emotion and is upset. And I've always learned with golf, like, you really have to keep your emotions level-headed. You know, you can't. Nancy Lopez was one of my mentors on the LPGA when I became a rookie. And one thing that she taught me is, she said, you can never get really up and you can never really get down. And you just kind of have to learn to keep that level head, and that you can perform much better if you stay level like that. And like I said, I picked up on that. I think I picked up on another thing Dallas had said one time. You know, I hate iron shots. I'm really weak at that. And I'm like, why are you telling me your weakness?
Yeah,
like, this is a show. We're competing against each other. I also, like, that was the weird thing, because in golf, you know, on tour, I'm rooting for my friends. You know, I want to win, but if I can't win, I want them to win. But in this instance, you know, there's only one winner at the end of the show, and I wanted to win so bad that if I can pick up on any sort of weakness on anybody, why not take advantage of it?
Yeah, it's like tells in poker, right? You don't
Right.
want to show your cards, and I agree with you. Let's touch on. I want to really get into the finals and talk about the match between Fiamma and yourself, but I want to touch on also a couple of the interesting events throughout the challenges. You started off the glass break, and everybody loves the glass break and the flop wall and all of that stuff. You had a immunity challenge, I believe, with part 1 and part 2. The first part of that was the glass break. You had 60 seconds to go out and break as much as you can, and or I think there was 2, 4, 6 kind of numbers.
Yeah, 2, 4, 6, 8. I think.
Yeah,
I think we had like a minute to break as much as we could.
Different sizes, and you did really well. I mean, you went 4 and 6 and got 10 points. Tell everybody about that, because that's one of the fan favorites. Obviously, is the glass.
Yeah, so cool. We had to hide. Well, I shouldn't say hide, but they put us all in the clubhouse, and we had to come out one at a time to hit. So we didn't know. All we knew was hit punch shots. So, or not, they might have lined us up and said, this is what the challenge is. We're hitting, you know, break the glass, whatever. I think that's what maybe it was. So then they took us all into the clubhouse, and we came out one at a time. So you had no clue, the people in front of you, what they did. So my thought was, well, you know, obviously you need to get a lot of points. So I didn't want to just go for the 2. I said, you know, I think maybe at the end I might have gone for the 2 if I had time. So I think in my head I was just like, let's just go for the 4. I might have hit it after a couple shots and then moved on to the 6. The 8 was a little bit farther distance away. It really was crazy how much, like, you're shaking and you're trying to go as fast as you can. It's like I said, it's not normal golf. Normal golf, you would sit there and take, you know, a couple extra seconds, make sure you line up. This is just, you know, speed. It's really hard to prepare for something like that, and to know how far it is away from you, what kind of club you want to hit. It was a lot of just nervousness and excitement too, because, you know, that's the one thing, that one in the flop ball, people are like, that's, you know, iconic big break, and we were excited to see that for the first episode that we got to actually hit the glass, and it's a really cool sound in person.
Yeah, that's really cool. The second part of that was picking a location that are valued at points. So you have your 10 points, and then you can go and you selected the 4-point shot. And I don't remember what happened there. Could you fill us in on what happened when you took that 4-point shot?
I hold out.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I think it was like it was like 85, 90 yards, something like that. And I hit a shot and it spun back, and really where we were, it was kind of hard to see. So the contestants that weren't hitting the benches were up at the green. And then I think we got to choose from like a bunker shot. Clearly I'm not going to do that. A chip, like a 50-yard pitch, or a full 90-yard. I think it was 90 yards. And for me, I was like, I'm more comfortable hitting inside a circle with a full shot, and that's the most points. Why would I not take that opportunity? And I think I was like one of the first ones to go. So then once I went, everyone went back to that location because I think I got double points by holing out. But I just remember I was so shocked that I holed out. I was like, did I seriously do that? Like, I cannot believe that I just holed out.
Your famous line was, "This is the first show," or
yeah.
It was really funny. That's cool.
So, and I also knew, I was like, well, that kind of, not that it put a target on my back, but it was almost more like, all right, well, this girl came to play. Like, she's good. So either like girls might not want to pick me, or girls might want to take me out. Yeah. It was one of those like, but I was happy I holed out for sure.
So then you go on to I might not be directly after this, but the flop ball is a team event. And I believe it's the one where you have the three different walls, right? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
You only can have 6 shots. Tell us, first of all, about the flop wall. What is it like? Is the wall bigger? I mean, you had that first small one.
Yeah.
But,
it's so much bigger. And the one that we had 3 different sizes. And I was with, I believe, Mary and Kylie. And they didn't want to hit over the tallest wall. And so I was like, all right, I'll do it. Like, no big deal.
But why did Mary hit first? That was a big question.
Know. Yeah. I mean, Kylie was a great player too, but it was surprising that Mary, she didn't step up. She must not have been comfortable hitting flop shots. That's the only thing I can think of, is that she wasn't comfortable with it. And by the time I got to my shot, I was so close to the wall. I remember asking my producer that night in the interview, I'm like, did I even like have a chance?
No,
He's like, there's no way. He's like, you were way too close to the wall. And flop shot, that was definitely a challenge that I was a little nervous about, because it's not, it's one thing to flop it over a wall, but then you have to get it on the green and close to the hole. And it was just not a challenge that I was like a huge fan of.
I remember watching that with some guys, and one of the guys said, I'm not sure she could have got that over the small wall, because that's how close you were. I mean, literally, the angle just wasn't there.
I think I could have touched the wall. I was that close to it with my hand.
That's right.
It was just, there was no way. But I think Kylie had struggled getting it over the second wall. And I think like Mary had hit it too far. So Kylie had a little bit of a harder time to get over the wall. So it was just, we were kind of set up with disaster from the start, I suppose.
So you get through a bunch of challenges. You're winning immunity. One time you go head to head. I think it was that team event where, like, if you pick somebody, they're out, and you and Sadine are up first, and it's like dun 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 dun. Right. And tell us about that. This is the first head to head. You guys are standing. Are you realizing that people are looking at you, not the viewing public, but the people that these are the 2 best players here? Is that obvious to you guys at this point?
I think at that point, yes. Just because of, I had holed out. I had won, it seems like at the beginning, Sadina and I were constantly going back and forth with winning immunity and that cash. Because I think maybe the 3rd episode, she had hit it a few inches closer than me on one challenge. And it was kind of like she kept winning all this stuff and I was just behind her. And so it was finally like, all right, we get to go head to head. Let's see. I think it was like a 100-yard shot or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think she didn't hit a good shot. And I think that's where I remember like, all right, she's showing, she's a human. And these are the shots that I remember her hitting when I played with her on Symmetra Tour.
You hit it to 5 feet, by the way. She didn't make the green, and you hit it to 5 feet, which was all of a sudden now, if you were thinking Sadina's the only one, and it wasn't really that way. It wasn't like she was the front runner way up here and you were all in a group.
Right.
It was you and her, like you said. But when you did that, it was like, wait a minute, don't crown her champion yet.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I definitely think that, like I said, people even watching the show, you know, people are like, gosh, she was so much better. She's so much better. And I'm like, I get it, like that show. But at the same time, like it's a consistency thing, you know, got to be consistent over time. And like I said, I would say that I had probably one of the better resumes on paper going into the show. I remember one girl, I think it was Courtney. She got kicked off first. I didn't really get to know her, but I remember she made the comment, like she'd never even played on Bermuda before. And in my head, I remember I wrote in my journal, I read it last night, that I was like, I cannot believe she told us that. Like, because Bermuda is not easy. And she's going to struggle because Bermuda grass
so
is
different.
So different. I think she was from the Northwest, so she had Poana greens. And so I would definitely say I was a little like upset that I didn't get to go at first, that I didn't get to go out of the state or out of the country. But then at the end of the day, I'm like, you know, I'm not here on a vacation or resort. I'm here to play golf. And really, maybe it's a good advantage for me to be in Florida where I'm already used to the grass. I remember girls making comments like, gosh, I'm just not hitting my clubs as far out here. I'm like, well, it is like Florida, the ball does not fly very far. Like it's, you know, a lot of these girls are coming from Arizona where the ball flies forever. So I felt like I could use those things to my advantage.
So last thing on Sedina, she was raking in the money. Do you think, and I know this is just your opinion, was it her thinking at this point, yeah, there may be, you know, Jackie and maybe Mary, Renee wasn't playing great, Fiamma's doing okay, but I can kill the rest of these girls. I'm taking the money. I don't need immunity. I can just, because she had like $10,000 5 episodes in or something like that. It's seemed like she's had no fear. I don't have any fear going back in the pool and playing, right?
No, she didn't. I would say, she was not, she sometimes I feel like forgot about the strategy and like you said, kind of lived fearless, which is great sometimes. But then there were certain aspects that you couldn't live fearless because, you know, do you really need to attack the pin if you only need, I remember there was one challenge where it's like all she needed was 1 point or something and went for like broke and for 4 or 5 points to win the money or immunity rather than just like, let's not finish last or let's not, you know, sometimes you have to change your mindset of, well, if this is all I need to make sure that I'm safe, then that's what I need to do. I don't need to be the hero.
I think it's the one she went back to the 150 yard and she didn't have to.
Yes.
Like, why are you going way back there? You don't need to do that. So interesting. Let's jump to the finals. This was, you know, I agree. I thought throughout this thing, Renee in the first 2 episodes, I'm like, okay, she's following Courtney. That'll be quick. By the way, credit to her with the pressure of that early elimination. Oh, you're not playing anybody. You're just going to, everybody's going to be watching you by yourself and you better par this hole. I mean, credit to her.
Sometimes that's harder than playing someone else. You know, making par isn't necessarily the easiest thing.
That's right. And it was amazing. And then she went on to play well. But so give us your thoughts about Fiamma coming into this thing. She obviously had game. You could tell she's an athlete. You know, I think from a mental standpoint, she got off the beaten track a little bit with Mary. But other than that, solid citizen on the show, right? Played the game pretty well strategically. Give us your thoughts about the finals up against Fiamma.
So I actually had played with her, I want to say in like a Symetra Tour Q school, several years before the show. So I had met her before and played with her. And I don't think she performed very well when I had played with her before. And she hadn't been on Symetra Tour or anything. So I knew that she didn't have the experience that I did. And so I knew like Renee was playing on the Symetra Tour, Mary was playing on the Symetra Tour, and then Fiamma wasn't playing as much. And so in my mind, I'm like, if I play Fiamma, like I got this in the bag. Like I was just not, you know, it sounds cocky, I suppose, but in my mind, I'm like, this is the best chance for me to win this show. When it came down to the 4 of us, because I knew Renee, like I said, she was sneaky good. People were counting her out. Fiamma doesn't hit as far. And then I also recall Mary at one point said something about Fiamma told me she would never pick you to go against her because she is scared to play you. She thinks that you would beat her. And so I had that. I don't know why Mary had told me that. This was a few episodes in. I think we were driving in the same golf cart. Mary was trying to pick, like, who would you pick to go against? Who would you pick to go against? And I didn't say anything. And I think she was just trying to get information out of me to see. But she had made that comment to me. And so when I was playing Fiamma, when I knew I was playing her, I'm like, maybe I got this. And I remember on the 9th tee of our finale, I think I was like 4 up or something like that. And we got to play the hole pretty much on time of what we wanted to do. Sometimes we had to wait a little bit till the cameras readjusted, but in between holes, we had to wait till all the cameras relocated to where they needed to be on the hole. So we get to the 19th.
What kind of time frame is that? Just to ask you. And by the way, you were 5 up. You were 5 up going into 9.
Okay. Yeah. I can't remember exactly,
yep.
But,
I mean, because that matters, right? You go, I just come up, like you go up 1 after 1.
Yeah.
I don't want to wait. I want to run to the next tee and tee off.
That's an interesting thing too. After the first hole, is a camera. I think it's called the Spider, but it's basically like it's a camera crew. They're the big circle. I don't know the right word, but it's like this arm. It goes up in the air, and then the guy's on top.
Yep.
So the golf cart, Spider cart, broke down. So it was a good almost 30 minutes between the first hole until we got to start the second hole. Till we waited till it somehow they were able to get it jump started and move. So we had to wait a long time in the second hole. And then after that, I would say it was probably about 5 minutes till we got to play between each hole. Now we would hit, we go to our shot, and then they would say, all right, Jackie, you're up. All right, Fiamma, you're up. They would tell us, it was always who's away. And then when we got on the green, they would say, Jackie, you need to go stand here while she putts. And then vice versa. But so there was a decent flow once you started the hole, but in between holes, it was a little, waiting. They had to, all the contestants had to drive and get to the bench, which is usually up by the green. But I remember on the 9th hole, we were sitting there with, I think, the director, and we were waiting for all the carts to move. So there was no cameras on us or anything. And Fiamma made a comment to the director and said, I just don't have my game today. I wish that I did, but I just don't have it today. And I was like, why would you say this out loud? Now I'm like, I know I'm 5 up, but so I just knew then. I was like, well, all right, let's just see how fast we can get this done. I mean, it was just, I just knew in my head, I'm like, I can't believe it, but I'm most likely going to win this show. And that day I was on my game. I don't think I missed a green. I don't think I chipped. So it was just like she was going to have to make birdies to beat me, and she was just really struggling. And I remember one time I didn't give her a putt, and I could hear Mary in the background. Fiamma had these hats, and Mary wore one of her hats that had her name on it as like, I'm rooting for her to win.
Interesting.
Which I was just like, that's fine. Everyone else was there. Like, they were just like, we want good golf type thing. And I remember her saying, like, I can't believe she's not giving her that putt. Like, I could hear her. And then Fiamma missed it. So I'm like, well, that's why I didn't give her the putt. Like, I'm not here to say, let's just have fun. I know that's good. Like, I'm here to win. So you're going to have to make those putts to beat me. And I remember I had to make those putts. She didn't necessarily give me those putts. So, it was definitely, like I said, it was the most confident I felt the whole show was that finale.
So a couple things. One is you are through 9. You were 5 up through 9. There is nobody that's a golfer that would give anyone a putt when they're struggling. Number one, we can hug later, and I'll buy you a beer and we'll talk about it. But you're putting that putt. If it's 1.5 feet, you're putting it. I mean, those maybe in a different circumstance you would have get, but no way. I don't think anybody expected you to give anything away, especially someone that's struggling. Let me ask you this: knowing all the information that even much more than the viewers know, how much of this set Fiamma up for failure mentally? I mean, this seems like she came into this thing defeated already. Fair?
For the finale?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't talk to her about it. She had performed really well all season. She surprised me after I had played with her before. Like, she was definitely a much better player than I had remembered playing with her. But like I said, I knew in the back of my mind that she had told Mary, and Mary could have been pulling that out of her butt. Who knows? She could have been lying to me about that. I don't know if Fiamma actually said that, but she had told me that Fiamma never wanted to play against me. So maybe Fiamma was nervous to go against me. But at the same time, like, both of us were in a spot of being nervous. This is what we came here for. I can't believe we actually made it to the end. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. You'd have to ask her what she was thinking.
So you go along, and I want to ask you about two things really quick on this. This is pretty funny. You go along and you're talking about, you're doing the math, and you're like, wait a minute, I got, I'm 5 up through 12. And, I started thinking, you're saying this. I started thinking I can win the big break at this hole or da-da-da. And then boom, next hole she birdies and it's,
yeah.
And you're like, I don't know why I was thinking about that.
Yeah. That's when I was like, okay, reality check, like, hold on. And then I think the hole that I could have won if she bogeyed or something, that's where I gave her a putt. Cause I was like, at the end of the day, I don't want to win because she misses a putt. I want to win because I make a putt. And at that point, I knew, I was like,
you did, yeah.
She would have to outright win every single hole coming in.
Yeah, and you're not bogeying, so she's gonna have to birdie.
In my mind, I was like, I want to win it on a hole because I won it, and not because she missed a 3-foot. Like, it would have felt weird celebrating. And really, as soon as I made that putt and we hugged, my emotions just completely came to surface, because I had finished second several times on Symmetra. At that point I hadn't won, and that was my kind of story of like, I'm always second place, and finally I won. So it was just a lot, and it was such an exhausting experience. I only got to talk to my husband once a night, and someone was listening to the conversation, so it wasn't like I could really talk about what was going on. So it was such an exhausting but exhilarating, exciting experience that it just was like finally done. And now I can just let it all out and be emotional about it.
So you win, I think, on 14, right? You close her out with 4 up on 14, and
I think so. Yeah. I believe that's right.
Before we find out what's going on with Jackie today, give me 2 things, I'll make it easy for you, that you remember on your notepad that was hanging on the clip from the golf cart.
I'm pretty sure I wrote 1 shot at a time.
You did write that. I zoomed into it, so I haven't. No, I didn't. I just.
I think I might have said something about believe in yourself or be confident.
You did. That's good. That'll pass. Ding, ding, ding. We move on. That was really cool, though. I mean, from a standpoint of, again, I mentioned at the beginning, cerebral playing. You're telling yourself your lowest stat is bunker, and you're telling yourself you're the best bunker player in the world. Makes sense. I'm not going to think about, oh no, I've been working on bunker, maybe I'll do good here. You're saying I got this, right? Same thing with the thoughts and the thing. If you're distracted in any way, mine's off the target goal, I'm going to look right down here because it's right in front of me and get my mindset again. That preparation, right? Everybody talks about preparation. You win in practice, you don't win in the game, kind of thing. It's all in front of you. And I thought that showed you where you were mentally. You're not thinking about, let me get a Snickers bar for the thing, or a, nature bar for let's stack up on this. And do I have enough tees? You're thinking, what's my mindset got to be? And that's a winning mentality right there.
Yeah.
All right. So it's all over. You go and do your post, wrap party, and you do all of that, and you fly back, or hopefully they didn't fly you back to Atlanta. And then back to
I believe I did. I think I did fly to Atlanta. I could have driven home, but I think I ended up flying with Renee because she was down in West Palm as well, or down south somewhere. So we were on the same flight together coming home. We all staggered getting there. So none of us saw each other. I didn't see anybody till the day after I got there. So she flew home with me. So my husband had picked me up from the airport.
So you're sworn to secrecy, and we get that, and it's contractual, and you have to give, your children away. Well, you didn't have any at the time, but you have to sign over your house and your play, because it literally it's not worth it, as you mentioned early on. So what is that like? You just won Big Break. Big Break is the highest rated show on the Golf Channel. It is nationally, NBC, is taking, it's massive. And you won it, and you can't tell anybody. What? Yeah. A month or so. What do you do? Do you go back to work? Do you?
So I was working at a retail golf store, local golf store at the time. So I think I had said, at the time I was only working in the off season. So I think I just said, oh, you know, I want a little bit more time off before I come back to work. So I'll start in November. So I did a hometown visit and I had camera crew come in, but I had told them, oh, Golf Channel is doing like a day in the life of a Symetra Tour player. So I had to kind of fib a little bit. And so once it was finally announced, my boss was like, I knew it. But you know, for the first couple months, like when no one knew that I was on it except for my family, it was fine because no one knew. And then once it was announced, you know, that's when I had to bring on the poker face and, you know, I just kept saying, you're going to have to watch. I don't know. I can't tell you anything. Like, you're just going to have to watch. I have a very long contract. And so I remember there's a couple.
Are they doing marketing in your, I mean, you're now, I don't remember how it was spun out at the time. Are they announcing ahead of time the people that are on the show? So there's a couple weeks before it, in 2 weeks.
Yes.
A big break.
Yes. I think it might've been like announced in January and then a month later, a few weeks later. Yeah. So that people knew I was on it.
Got it.
And so like, I remember there's a couple times I was in the grocery store cause I have a fairly small town. I grew up here, still live in the area. And I just remember there's a couple of people that came up to me in the grocery store and I was like, I have no clue who you are type thing. Now it's died down a little bit. People don't even realize I was on a show, but at the time it was definitely a little weird. I remember, I was traveling on Symetra while it aired. So there was definitely different places that, you know, people would come up to me and say stuff, except mostly on the golf course. People were there to come watch me on the golf course. And
Garrity, let me just jump in because she was way back in season 3, right? In Ladies Only. She says that when she was over and the thing is now showing on the air, she is playing on one of the tours and there were not used to the security. Everybody's following her. All the pre-media is her. They're interviewing her because she's this TV person, right? This celebrity. And she said she'd walk out of a Symetra tour. I don't know if she was a Symetra tour or Future tour or whatever, but she would walk out to her car by herself and there would be guys, she said on the interview, sitting on her trunk.
Oh my God.
She actually gave this also. She was playing on a tour and she was walking back to her bag and a guy was looking at her driver. Like there was no room. She had it on the bag and the guy was
wow.
So I just wanted to give you that story because she was.
That's wild. Yeah, I don't feel like it was ever that extreme for me.
Come on, there was a little bit celebrity once you won this thing, signing autographs at the supermarket, the airports, right? What's the biggest celebrity thing that happened? Somebody you met? Somebody that? Give me a celebrity.
Like for me, like someone that said something to me. Gosh.
Yeah. Or somebody you met because of the fact that you ended up being the big break. Was there a celebrity you met that or a golfer that you met at?
I would say, I've had a lot more opportunities with pro-ams and whatnot. I still get people at LPGA events that still say, oh my gosh, it's the girl from Big Break. You know, now we're 6 years removed from it. So it's still a little wild to think people still, remember who I was, I suppose. I'm trying to think if I had any like celebrity moments or met anybody that because of it. I got to be on the morning drive a couple times, which is a really cool experience and get that exposure. And I remember Jerry Foltz, the first time I met him at the Manulife Classic and he like knew who I was and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And now I know him well just from LPGA.
Yeah.
So I guess that's been kind of cool too.
As we wrap this up, Jackie, and we really appreciate your time today, tell everybody what you're doing now, for those that don't know, and what's life like, and tell us about you today.
Well, Big Break definitely catapulted my career. Shortly after that, and we filmed in October, then in December I went to final stage of Q school. I ended up getting partial LPGA status. Not enough to really get me into much. So I stayed on some.
What does that mean? Define that.
So like basically I had a priority number that was probably like 180s. So, say every week 144 girls play. Well, I would have needed about 50 girls to not sign up for me to get in. So if I played, I would have gone into like maybe 5 events. But I played on Symetra Tour to start. and I had started off well. So I stayed out there and ended up finishing in the top 10 and got my full card for the next year. So played, and what ended up Big Break helped me is my husband and I had always had this dream of, you're going to make it on the LPGA and I'm going to quit my job and come caddy for you. He was an assistant pro at the time. We met right when I went out of college. And so I had no status when I met him, and we were just like, this is our dream. And then Big Break made it literally my dream as a reality, because the next year I had all this travel credit, all this Avis credit. We traveled the entire year for free, which was amazing. Now, I didn't play very good. I didn't make much money, but we didn't spend thousands of dollars to travel.
Right.
And so, so he quit his job and caddied for me. And then we struggled. So I went that year, I was able to play 3 Symetra Tour events. And so I went and played and I won 2 of them. Wow. And I had struggled all year on LPGA, and I was kind of like, I don't know if this is for me. And then I go win 2 times and I'm like, this is completely mental. I mean, it's obviously not my game. It's just LPGA is such a jump of more of the mental attitude of, everyone out there is just so good. And not that Symetra Tour girls, they're great too. They're good. But for me on the Symetra Tour, I went out there and I was like, well, I can beat all these girls. I can win. I had almost that Big Break mentality where I needed to bring that with me to LPGA. So then ended up going back to Symetra, finished top 10 again, won another 2 times. And then basically since then, I think it's 2017, I've been out on the LPGA. So last year I ended up giving birth to my first son in September. So I played only about a half a year. So now I'm on maternity status. So I was planning to go back last month, but then, with everything going on, I've kind of put on a halt again. So it's actually been a year since I've played on the LPGA, which is really crazy to think that it's been that long. This is the longest I've been home since high school at a time, and I'm 34. So, it's been a long time since I've been home for this long, but it's been great. I've had extra time with my family, had extra time with my son being home. I plan to bring him with me. The tour has a daycare that is sponsored by Smuckers. So I don't even have to pay a thing to have him out there with me and have daycare. Daycare ladies are awesome. And I always thought in my head, I'm like, when I have a family, I'm done. I'm not playing anymore. But then seeing so many girls do it, like Stacey Lewis, Drina Pillar, who are some of the other girls now, Brittany Lincecum, I've gotten to know her really well because her daughter's a few months older than my son. And now I'm like, you know what? Now I want to go out there. I want to show my son that you can still be a professional athlete and be a mom, and to keep that dream alive. And then one day share with him, guess what your mom used to do? And, you got to travel with her on the LPGA. And so hopefully we'll get back to it at some point this year. I'm not going to plan to go out right away. I just kind of want to see how, the testing goes and just how everything happens first before I jump on an airplane.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's smart. We're seeing that the PGA, I mean, it's going to happen, right? They're testing everybody multiple times. You're going to get what we've seen in 4 or 5 of these guys and their caddies and stuff. But you're right. I mean, the baseball's just come out, and I read this morning that 5 or 6 players are saying, just not doing it. I'm not going to play this year. They're not playing in their Major League Baseball condensed season because, like you, I know one of the pitchers mentioned, I have 2 twin 1-year-old boys and a 3-year-old daughter. I'm not bringing anything home to any of them. And I don't want, there's a lot of unknowns of what's going on with this thing. And so, we all have to be vigilant. And cool. I got a last question for you. Well, two final ones. One is, I know you've played on different PGA events, but as an LPGA player, I mean, you got to be treated like, tell us a little bit, give us a little insight of being, I'm a regular LPGA player.
Yeah.
What an achievement that is.
I still have to pinch myself when you say that. Definitely reminiscing on how far I've come since Big Break. if you would have told me that at Big Break that this is what my life would be like now, I wouldn't have believed you. So the fact that I've been able to accomplish that dream, I have not had the success that I wish I would on the LPGA. And I think now I have a major appreciation of my life and a different kind of attitude and outlook at life because I'm a mom. That 3-footer that I miss is not going to feel as bad as I thought it was, before I had a child. There's just a different outlook on life. So,
Yes.
But it's incredible. I mean, being an LPGA player is just a dream come true. And, just it's such just an exciting life to live out there. And I've been to so many different countries and, different states and got to see pretty much most of America and just through, hitting a little golf ball around, played some amazing golf courses and met some incredible people and incredible host families. And there's girls like Brittany Lincecum. Like I remember she might've been a year older than me in high school. And I remember when she turned pro at the state championship and I was like, oh my gosh, this girl's so good. And like looked up to her and now I'm friends with her.
Yeah.
So it's cool experience. Nancy Lopez, same thing. She's been a mentor to me. I was obsessed with, Kari Webb. I wrote to her in middle school for a school project. She wrote me back. I still have the letter. It's from 1999. In my rookie year, I was so scared to talk to her. It took me almost the entire year to finally have the courage to talk to her about it. And she ended up inviting me to play a practice round with her. So I'm getting to live my dream with my idols. And like I said, the Big Break really kind of catapulted me. It would be interesting to know if I didn't have that experience, what I would be doing now. And I'm glad I don't have to know if I didn't have that experience.
That is awesome. So you've kind of answered this, but I think by law, I'm supposed to ask this. Summarize your experience on Big Break. We obviously know what it's meant to you, but just when you look back on it, and we kind of went through it today, you did everything you wish that Aunt Jackie would look like. You did.
Yep.
So let's clean that up, right? You were professional. You were a sportsman. You were someone that was very competitive. But give us your summary of what you felt about the Big Break experience.
It really is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Did I ever think I was going to be on a reality TV show? No. And that's another thing that a lot of people ask me, is it scripted? And it's not at all. The producers don't even really interact with us on the course. Everything you saw, all of Mary's, club throws or F-bombs or, the girls that got emotional, the tears, that was all pure themselves. At the interviews at night, that's when they would maybe ask us questions to, get us to say something. But it's not scripted. So but like I said, I never thought that I would be on a show on TV like that. I can't wait till my son grows up and I can show him, my season, and just, it really was a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I am so incredibly grateful for it. And that I still have to remind myself that I won.
That's awesome. Well, listen, you showed yourself as the class person that you are, and on the show, and since then, obviously, in your LPGA career. We wish you the best in motherhood with your family when the LPGA is safe enough for you to go out there, and I'm sure they'll do the right thing. They're a class organization,
yes.
So they'll do the right thing. And we really appreciate you being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
You're
yes,
welcome.
Thanks.